Good morning, Snipes Academy. It is Friday, September 10th. I'm Mr. Yates, and this is Snipes Daily News. All right, guys, welcome back. Happy Friday. Let's go ahead and get into it with some weather. So today, right now, as of this recording, it's in the 70s, and there's only a high of 82, and there should be no rain today, which are all good things. No one should be having indoor recess. It shouldn't be too terribly hot, and it should be sunny all day. It should be a very, very good day to be outside. Today, for this day in history, we're going to talk about 9/11. This is a hard thing to talk about. I'm going to do my best to give this day all of the seriousness that it deserves without being too grave. But I do need to talk about it because it is important to remember history. In the words of Edmund Burke, and this can be our quote of the day, those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. And in light of recent events, I think it's important that we remember our history. So on this day in history, 20 years ago, at approximately 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time, on a clear Tuesday morning, an American Airlines Boeing 767 loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. When the first plane hit, everyone was very curious and thought this could possibly be an accident. The World Trade Center is very tall, and there are flights coming from JFK and LaGuardia passing through that area all the time. It would be a very odd mistake for a pilot to make. However, it was thought that perhaps it was an accident. This changed, however, when 18 minutes later, a second Boeing 767 United Airlines Flight 175 appeared out of the sky, turned sharply toward the World Trade Center, and sliced into the South Tower, about the 60th floor. At that point, it was very clear that these were deliberate attacks on Americans. Further confirming this theory that America was under attack, an hour after the first one, 9:45, a third 757 crashes into the Pentagon, which is a government building in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, a fourth California-bound plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked about 40 minutes later after leaving Newark Airport in New Jersey. The difference with this one, though, are two things. First, the flight was delayed for obvious reasons in the chaos of what was happening in New York, and the passengers knew what had happened in New York. So when their plane began getting hijacked in the middle of the air, the passengers knew what was happening. They knew that this was part of the attacks that were happening all around the East Coast. So the passengers decided to do something extremely courageous. They did not allow the plane to be hijacked. The pilots were incapacitated by the hijackers, with no one on the plane left to fly the plane except for the hijackers, which the passengers would not allow. The passengers crash-landed the plane in a field in Pennsylvania, preventing the plane crashing into its original destination, which was probably the White House. At the end of the day, between these four attacks, 2,977 Americans lost their lives in these terrorist attacks. Very few of them were military personnel, however. The next closest attack on American soil would have been Pearl Harbor in 1942. And that resulted in about 2,400 deaths. The main difference here is that Pearl Harbor was a military attack. Pearl Harbor was a military base. This was a terrorist attack, specifically because it did not target military targets, but it targeted civilian targets. For those of you who don't know, terrorism is the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. In this case, the political aims were of an extremist Islamic group called Al-Qaeda. The attacks were thought out and planned by a man named Osama bin Laden. They were carried out by an Islamic extremist group called Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda was later facilitated and harbored by the Taliban. Typically, the purpose of a terrorist attack is to create chaos and division among the people who are being attacked. And usually that is the case. Usually when you see a terrorist attack, almost immediately people are divided, and things are thrown into chaos. However, these particular attacks had completely the opposite effect on America. Within 12 hours of these attacks happening, it completely solidified everyone's unity in America, which leads us to another quote. I don't know who this quote came from, but it's a pretty common phrase that a common enemy unites the oldest of foes. So people who had, days or even hours earlier been vehemently opposed against each other suddenly were united together under one idea. I had not before or since seen the amount of patriotism that I saw in the months and years immediately following the 9/11 attacks. This is as far as I'm going to get into this because we only have so much time, and because this is already a lot of information for some of you. This is to help our students learn a little bit about our own history again, so that we do our best not to repeat it. The actual date of September 11th is tomorrow. So tomorrow will mark the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. And, if you could just take a moment sometime during your day tomorrow and maybe a moment of silence and just reflect on the things that I've said today. To lighten up the mood slightly, we do have 2 birthdays today. So, our first birthday is Jordan Dorsey in 2nd grade. Jordan will be turning 8. And Josiah Hansley in 3rd grade, who will be turning 9. So if you see either of these folks in the hallway, make sure you wish them a very big happy birthday. And that'll about wrap things up for us today, guys. So I hope you all work very hard, learn as much as you can. And I will see you here on Monday. This is Snipes Daily News.